Welcome to the Travel Squad podcast, where adventure meets inspiration. We're your hosts. I'm Brittany.
I'm Kim.
And I'm Jamal. Together we explore international destinations, hike epic national parks, and share unforgettable travel experiences with you, one passport stamp at a time.
Our mission is to inspire you to travel by showing you how you can make it work no matter your budget, schedule, or experience level.
We bring you along so that you can laugh, get excited, and start planning your own trip.
So grab your ticket and your passport.
And don't forget your travel insurance.
And get ready to embark on a new adventure with us around the globe.
Hello, fellow travelers.
Hey, Squaddies.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Travel Squad podcast. Today we have a very special guest joining us, Matt Mitzel.
In this episode, we talk with Matt about how he got into teaching English abroad, what to look for in teaching contracts, and how he spends his time traveling and backpacking while he's on breaks or in between contracts.
I found it so fascinating to hear about his way of life, especially as we went into addressing the language barrier of teaching English in another country. And surprising, it's not much of a barrier at all. You don't actually need to know the native language to teach English in a country like Korea. I thought that was so interesting. Matt had so many cool and interesting things to share about his way of life and teaching in abroad in all of the different places that he has done it in so far. He has a really, really inspiring story to tell, and it's a really interesting episode for anyone that might be considering this type of travel and teaching abroad career and life choice.
And with that, let's welcome Matt to the Travel Squad podcast.
Matt, we are so excited to have you on the podcast today. I'm so excited to learn about your teaching in other countries and all of the countries that you've been backpacking through. But before we dive into that, I want to go way back to what is your first travel memory that really sticks out in your mind?
Yeah. So first off, thank you all for having me on the show. I really, appreciate it. Let's have a good talk. And so back to your questions. So I've done a lot of travel growing up. I'm from Maryland, so we would go every summer to the Outer Banks, North Carolina. So that was kind of just a continuous memory. But the one that really stuck with me, I guess, would be when I was in 8th grade, and I went to China with my father. So he had a business trip there. And so he took me and my grandmother. So we went for 2 weeks. And, that was my first real out of the country kind of experience. And, I guess my first culture shock, if you will, in terms of travel. And so, being, I think it's a young age, 8th grade, just going, eating food that wasn't what I knew as Chinese food in the US. So it was real China. So it was just, things like that, just being accustomed to new things and, taking that memory, moving forward kind of thing, and just have things open my mind to the world, different cultures, different languages, especially the food. So that trip really, spearheaded me towards my love for travel, if you will.
I love that. We've all been to China. We went on a group trip together and we had an absolutely amazing time there. And so, yeah, if you haven't been out of the US before, it is kind of a culture shock.
Yeah.
And so really great that you loved it so much in 8th grade that you're like, I want to continue your travel journey.
Exactly.
So how was it that you decided you wanted to start teaching English abroad?
Yeah, so we'll go back a little. So when I was a junior in college, my mom really pushed me to studying abroad. And, she studied abroad in Spain. And she just pushed it on me. And I think I got caught up in, being a college student, oh, Mom, no, I'm going to miss out on the nights going out, in college and stuff like that. Just a very stupid approach. But so then I kind of said okay, I'll do my own trip. So I did a backpacking trip my junior year, a solo trip in Europe. And again, the China was a big experience, but this is my first my travel experience kind of thing. So I fell in love with it. I guess it was 3 weeks of traveling in Europe, my first time, doing a lot of these things by myself. And so I loved it so much. The following year I went with my roommates. We did another Euro trip. And, as it came time to graduate, my mom had suggested oh, maybe, you could look into teaching English abroad. I have a friend son that does it. And, if you have this passion for travel and you don't really know what it is that you want to do, because, I didn't study teaching. I studied marketing, public relations. So I was like, oh, yeah, I really do want to live abroad and, experience, this kind of thing. So yeah, I got certified to teach English as a foreign language. I guess the fall after I graduated college, this would be 2017. And yeah, so then I found a job teaching in Spain, and then I was off. And then, you know, in the time until now, I've lived and taught in Spain for close to 2 years in two different regions, Barcelona and then the Northwest in Galicia. Then I was off to South Korea in Busan, and then yeah, just finished a year here in Istanbul. My mom really, shout out my mom, you know, she really pushed me to do this kind of thing. And, you know, I haven't looked back since. And, you know, I'm not sure where it will take me next, but yeah, so she really started me up with it.
Well, I think a lot of people these days have thought about that, right? Because it's one of the top things that you see is like teaching English abroad as a way to really make money and travel at the same time. You kind of hit upon it and said that you had to take your classes or credentialing. But if somebody was to want to take the approach that you're doing now, what and where do they go to get that credentialing to do it? And on top of that, whatever country you're teaching in, do your students already have a base English knowledge, or do you need to know any of the language of the country in which you're teaching to kind of help with that language barrier as you're teaching?
Of course. So to answer your first question, so there are many different ways to get, you know, certified, the TEFL certificate. There are a ton of different, programs and schools kind of thing. So you can actually go on Groupon. You can get certified for like $30, which, I mean, I don't know if I'd really recommend that, but I went through an online company based in Chicago called the International TEFL Academy. And so while it was pricier compared to other ones, they have a really good network with the alumni, you know, because there's people all over the world. It's a really big company, if you will. And the advisors as well. They have their advisors, you know, to be an advisor, you have had to have lived and taught in another country kind of thing. So they really know their things. You know, there's, you know, specific people you speak to about Asia, specific ones about Europe, South America kind of thing. So to answer your question, you know, you just have to Google it, you know, find what's in your price range for a TEFL certificate. Mine was all online. It was about a 12-week course. And so a lot of the jobs you need at least 120 hours, you know, for the package. And so on top of that, you had to do 20 hours of practicum. So there's 16 hours of, you could do observation, volunteering, teaching. And then the last 4, really just the teaching. So I kind of did like 16 hours of, you know, volunteering, observation, then leading some classes back in Washington, D.C., where I was living at the time. So first thing you do is, you know, get that certification. And then there are just many different job boards to find, you know, these positions. The one that we use is Dave's ESL Cafe. I guess this man, Dave, was just trying to create a job board. It's not the most visually or user-friendly in terms. Well, it's user-friendly, but the way it looks is not. It looks like a MySpace kind of website. But, you know, it has the jobs. And so your next question to answer. So the positions that I've done have all been in English. There is no teaching, you know, in that other language kind of thing. You actually, in Turkey, you're not supposed to speak any of, not necessarily come in knowing any Turkish, but I was partnered with a Turkish teacher. They are not allowed to say any Turkish, and it's kind of like putting on an act where the kids don't actually know that she can speak Turkish kind of thing. So in Spain, you know, I studied Spanish, but, you know, again, it's all English. And I guess what you're saying is, yes, it is difficult. You know, it can be, you know, especially, you know, teaching, and there is that language barrier. But also I've taught with younger kids, and at that point, it's like they're learning just one language anyways. You know, I mean, it's not like their native language is so high. It's, you know, a kid, you know, it's a sponge. They're just learning it the same way if it was their native language, you know? No, I think, you know, from my experience in the jobs, I don't think you would really find any jobs that would really want you to speak their language. Of course, maybe that might set you apart in certain regions of the world, but, you know, in a Korea, no, it doesn't matter. You don't have to know anything about Korean. The China, I mean, it's not like you're doing anything in that language. Of course, it might help you when you live there, but the teaching aspect, no, I mean, I don't see where you would really need it per se.
Have you picked up some of the languages in the places that you've been living?
Yeah, so Korean, I was able to, because it's not characters, it's symbols, but it's not like Chinese where it's characters, or the Japanese, it's 20, maybe 30, some sounds. So it is a phonetic language. So I was able to read by the end of it. I didn't know what I was saying, but I was able to, you know, sound out what it is that's being written. The Turkish, you know, I wish I was better than I am. It's just, I think you become lazy when everything's in English, and it's just like, that's no excuse. I'm not, you know, embarrassed that my Turkish is as low as it is. But and in Spanish, my Spanish really improved, not from being in the classroom, but just having lived there. And I did a host family when I first went to Spain, so they didn't speak any English, so it was really a cool experience. But yeah, the Turkish and Korean should be higher than what being in there for a year. So I apologize to myself.
Well, those are three really different countries that you've taught in, and I selfishly want to know which one was your favorite to teach in and why.
If we talk about like the classroom setting as opposed to living, I think probably, okay, so being in Spain, I was a language assistant. So the program that I went through, you're more not necessarily, I mean, you I guess you are a teacher, but you're not leading, you don't have your own class kind of thing. It's more, this teacher has this class, and then when you go to their class, you do something fun or, to supplement what they're learning. So I wasn't necessarily giving so many lessons. I did stuff about talking about American culture and fun stuff like that. But the Korea, what really was the teaching aspect. But the Koreans, I was with kids age 3, which funny thing, a little side note about Korea, when a kid comes out of the womb, they are 1 year old, so they're not 1 day old. So when I signed up, and everyone turns a year older on January 1st. So a kid could be 2 days old. In Korean, they could be 2 years old. So when I signed up, I kind of got mixed up with the ages. So I showed up thinking I had 5-year-olds, but in reality, it was 3 and 4. And so that was, it's like, oh, okay, I guess y'all do this here. I didn't know. But, it was a little difficult at that point, just being the lowest level of not even just English, but speaking kind of thing. So I think if you ask me the classroom setting, I think Turkey would be my favorite. The kids level is quite, high, and I was able to have more in-depth conversations. And I think it was more rewarding with the curriculum or teaching in Turkey versus the other two. Because, Spain, as I said, it was an assistant kind of position. It really wasn't a teaching like what I am now kind of thing. So, yeah. But in terms of living, I mean, Barcelona is my favorite city in the whole world. I know y'all are just gone, but I love it. So, that was my favorite all in all living experience.
Well, you've mentioned a few countries already thus far. Are those the only ones that you've lived and taught in, or are there a few others that you haven't mentioned quite yet?
So those are the ones that I have taught in, and lived in. All the other countries that I've been have been through travel or some along those lines. But I have taught online through a Chinese company, and that was all Chinese kids. So I did that, but I was in the U.S. at that time, and it was another cool experience where again working with kids maybe 5 up until 13, and just seeing the different levels, all these countries that I've worked with, it's cool to see how, some are, I think Spain is a more relaxed educational system versus, the Korean is pretty cutthroat, and Turkey too, really. But, it's just, yeah, those are the countries that I have lived in.
Hey, Squatties, we want to share one of our favorite travel products with you. Liquid IV is a category-winning hydration brand fueling your well-being while traveling.
One stick fits into 16 ounces of water to give you 3 times the electrolytes of traditional sports drinks and hydrates you 2 times faster than water alone. Their half-ounce hydration multiplier powder packet is the one product you need in every suitcase, carry-on, and day pack.
We use it while flying on planes because flights can be so dehydrating. We use it when we feel jet-lagged, when we're out on a hike, and after a long night out that has us feeling worn out. In just one stick, you get 5 essential vitamins, B3, B5, B6, B12, and vitamin C.
Liquid IV also now comes in 12 delicious and refreshing flavors to keep your hydration routine exciting. Our favorites are the lemon lime and tangerine with immune support.
It's made with premium ingredients, all non-GMO and gluten, dairy, and soy-free. Get 20% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use Travel Squad Podcast at checkout. That's 20% off anything you order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code Travel Squad Podcast at liquidiv.com.
Hey, Squatties, let's take a quick detour to talk about our travel itineraries that we've created just for you.
We just launched several new international trip itineraries, including Tulum and Japan. This is on top of the itineraries we already have for U.S. trips like the Hawaiian island of Kauai, the U.S. Virgin Islands, as well as national park trip itineraries, including Utah's Mighty 5 National Parks and a week at Grand Teton and Yellowstone.
These fully built out 20 to 30 page PDF guides are available for instant download on our site right now. Every detail of the trip is laid out for you, so all you have to do is download, book, show up, and have fun.
The itineraries tell you where to fly into, the exact route to take, where to stay, park entrance prices, where to eat, driving distance between attractions, the things to see and do, even the hikes we recommend, their mileage, and the time to allot for each one. And believe it or not, so much more.
Be sure to head over to travelsquadpodcast.com to download your very own comprehensive travel itinerary today.
And so when you are looking for positions, what are you looking for in a teaching contract, and how long do the contracts usually last?
The ones that I have seen online have all been a year. Everything has been at least a year. I think it's kind of rare to find something maybe 6 months, but I have seen a few Chinese positions that are 2 years. So when you ask what I look for, definitely look for 1 year. My whole thing is 1 year in a new place at a new time. And I couldn't do 2 years because I don't, that is a long commitment for me. Maybe I have commitment issues. I don't know, but it's more like, you don't want to break a contract, and that doesn't, you could say it's about any position really. You could go 2 months in and you don't like it, but if 2 years is, I think, a long time for me kind of thing. So I definitely look at that. I look at city. In my first contract in Spain, I was in a small town in the Northwest, and great time. I had it was an amazing experience, but it was just such a small town where, I wasn't able to do as much travel as I wanted to. Of course, I really got to experience the town and the tight-knit community, but I feel like I was early 20s. That's more, I need to be in a city. So I like to pick a city, somewhere that, I think is easily accessible to other, like an airport kind of thing. So like Istanbul, looking here, I know I had been here before, but seeing like, oh my gosh, Turkish Airways flies all these different places. So that's a huge part of the criteria, just finding somewhere that, you can go to all different other places. And the age, I guess I've been pretty flexible because I have worked, from kids at 3 until graduation. So I think now moving forward, depending on how long I continue with this, definitely older kids, because I think the younger kids, great experience, but just a lot of the little things that you wouldn't necessarily deal with the older kids. But yeah, definitely it has to be a 1 year position for me. That's a huge draw. And yeah, and maybe even new countries. I'm pretty flexible because my life's goal is to visit every country in the world. So it's not like, okay, you have this position in a country I've never been. I don't care. I've never been to Korea. I'm very open. And then in terms of pay, some parts of the world pay higher than others. So in Asia, China, Korea, Japan a little, then Taiwan, that's where the money is compared to, Europe or South America, where if you're not an international school teacher, which you would have to have your undergrad in education, which I don't, then pay is lower. So, it's just juggling that kind of thing. Having been in Spain, the pay was low. You being a teaching assistant, the visa you're on, you're only working up to 20 hours a week. But, where I am now, I wouldn't go back to do that as much as I loved Spain. So it's just trying to find the next higher paying position, I guess.
Yeah. And when you say 1 year contract, do you mean one school year, or do you mean an actual calendar year? What is the year based off of?
Yes. So Spain being 1 year would be the school year. So it'd be like September to May. But Korea was a year-round calendar. So what was it? You had 2 weeks, I think, in December, then a week in July or something. So that is a full year. So September to September. And then Turkey was similar to Spain, like I guess a Western education calendar where it's not year-round. So it is a one academic year. But I know China being the 2 years, no, it's 2 years. Taiwan, 2 years. Korea, 1 year, the full, because they are year-round schools.
And I know you mentioned how you kind of got into the teaching English abroad. And I know I had touched upon too how, this is one of the things you see lots of people really interested in these days. Who would you say the profession that you're in right now is really catered to? Like who in their youth or even later on in life would really benefit from something like this and to recommend it for?
Yeah, I think everyone really, because I think everyone should have that experience of, maybe you studied abroad or something, it really widens your, horizons. You are going to these countries and you're living there. You're not a tourist, you're not a visitor. And I think it benefits really everyone. I've met people that have come from all different backgrounds in terms of what they studied and, not many people with education and, just the skills that you pick up and you learn, not to be cliche, but you learn a lot about yourself and you to pick up skills that, I think that you wouldn't necessarily get if you're just not doing it, being able to work through adulting, if you will, but in another language, in another culture and, trying to, be patient and understanding how the world works around the world kind of thing. And I think, I mean, I met people again who have taught abroad, and they're doing, X, Y, and Z, but engineering, this and that. So it's skills that it's just life skills, really. I mean, it's just a different rodeo. And then again, teachers, if you want to, of course, I met people that are teachers, of course, it would benefit them to teach in another country, because then they would pick up new skills, because you're doing everything to kids that don't speak your language, kind of thing. But I think it is for everyone. I don't know. My big regret in college is not studying abroad, and it's gaining that world perspective, and I think opens your eyes, really.
Yeah, and you had mentioned a little bit about the compensation and how, like, teacher's assistant, a little bit less, and you're kind of looking for that next step. But like for people that aren't in this niche, what's the kind of compensation range in US dollars when you're looking for a position?
Yes. So in Korea, well, because with inflation, the Korean won has lost its value, but between like 2,000 and I'll say 2,500, I think is a good range in US dollars for a Korea. I know China is upwards of, can be like 3,000 and more. But in Europe, from what I've seen, and Spain, the program I went through, Up International, again, being a language assistant, you're going to be making between, 700 to 900 euros. So what's that, like, I don't know, just a little more in dollars. But again, you're going on a student visa, so you're only working like 20 hours a week, and you're supposed to be studying the other time. But all the job boards that I've seen all in Europe, it is that lower pay than compared to in Asia, where the market is higher. And it's also a little more difficult to go to Europe unless you're a European or EU citizen. So a lot of the jobs, they're not going to sponsor you with a visa kind of thing. So it is a little harder to crack in there unless you go through Spain, which has these setup programs. In France, there's one as well with the same kind of pay, but there you actually have to place into it by your French level. So, and even South America too, I've seen on some job boards, Colombia and Brazil, it's up to $500, $600 a month. Again, Asia is where the money is if you're not an international school teacher kind of thing.
And do they help you at all with finding housing, or is that something that you do on your own?
In Spain, they did, which is a little difficult finding accommodation in another country. They steered you towards, the resources. It's funny, in Spain, there's an app called Body, which is the same, how do I say it? Same like structure as Tinder. So it's a swiping left and right. So it's the person who's renting the apartment versus the person who owns it kind of thing. So I see, I like this apartment, I'll swipe right. And if they like my profile, like, okay, I'm a smoker, I'm not, then they swipe right. Then, the dialogue is open. So it's a funny concept. In Korea, you are provided with housing. And if you don't take their housing, they can give you, a stipend kind of thing. And they'll pay for, a big thing in Korea is a key deposit, so that they'll cover that. But that's pretty standard in Korea. You wouldn't go and not have housing. And then in Turkey, it is provided. We live in a building that is the school owns. From what I've seen, in the rest of the places, it's not. Well, China provides, Japan provides, I think Taiwan, Asia provides, but everywhere else, I think they might steer you towards something, but it would be rare to find, a position in Italy that will, for one, hire you because you're not a European citizen and then give you housing, but they might, So they'll steer you towards resources.
Well, I think the potential for finding housing just coming in as a foreigner, and like you said, it's not as a tourist, you're living there, right? That's probably one of the biggest hurdles. And it seems like for the most part, to a degree, taken care of, right? So what are some of the other challenges then that you've faced while living abroad? Because I can imagine there's plenty of them, language barrier, etc. But what are some of the unsuspecting challenges?
Yes. So specifically from my experience, Turkey, the big challenge has been, the visa. So, we were kind of told that we would be given a working visa kind of thing. But because of the current, with the Ukraine war and the proximity to Syria, with refugees coming in, like Turkey stopped handing out these visas kind of thing. So that's been so many hoops trying to get this visa kind of thing, which I guess depending on the country, it might be harder than others. But as a more general thing, I think just meeting friends kind of thing. So, being in Spain or Korea, you are kind of you might have people in your program. But when I was in Spain, my first contract, it was this small town. Weren't a lot. I could speak Spanish, but it's not like there were a lot of people my age, actually. So it was, finding a friend group, living, with the host family, I'm spending time with them, but, I got to have my time, find the boys, if you will, or whoever. And, it's a little tough and, it can be a little harrowing because, it's one thing to move to a city back home, you're a big or small fish in a big pond, but here you are in like a big ocean because it's not your language, all that kind of thing. So, making friends and, again, learning about myself as in how can I find friends thing. Another hurdle, I guess, phone situation, finding, shopping between like phone plans and, stuff. I think it was in Korea. I wasn't able to get a phone plan until I had some permit or something. So specifically Korea, I was kind of, not allowed to go like sign up for a gym, like sign up for these things where it's like, well, I can't until I get this ID card. So, like little things like that where, it's different again as a traveler, as someone who's living there versus a tourist. I mean, I can't get a tourist package, like, it's things like that. And then, just again, navigating, in being in Spain again with the Spanish, but Turkey, I mean, it's in the Latin alphabet. Coming to Korea, I didn't research anything. So I lived, in Busan, the second biggest city in Korea. But where I was located, there was no English. And it was, you get a lot of stares because you're just so foreign. They haven't seen many foreigners. But just being able to, like, get at least, if I don't speak German, Italian, at least I can try to read something with the Latin alphabet. But there, it's like, oh my, going to China kind of thing, where it's just so, whoa. But, it's different having gone to China, where it's like, okay, well, I'm with a tour group versus here I am by myself, like, trying to figure out buses, trying to figure out signs, like, I don't know kind of thing. And, specifically in Korea, Google Maps isn't good there. They have their own map for, the writing system. So, like, just trying to find out where I'm going with this Google Maps, where, again, it's not catered for Korean. So just, things like that, just the admin things. But, I love that, that's the adventure of being in a new place. And I try not to get too caught up with, oh my God, why isn't this going in my favor? It's more, well, I signed up for this and this is fun to me,
You mentioned it's a little bit hard to make friends. I totally feel that after moving to a new city a year ago. And you said one of your first trips was a solo trip. Have you been doing a lot of
Yeah, so I'm I don't know if y'all have seen so far, but I'm a big talker. So, the solo travel thing is something that, when I'm doing the solo traveling, because I've done many, many, many trips solo, it's where I find myself most happy, I guess, in terms of the travel experience. I love traveling with the friends kind of thing, but it's something where, I can do what it is that I want in the schedule that I want kind of thing. And so, with that, I'm big with hostels. I stayed in hostels in the beginning, and I still will always advocate for them. I love going and meeting like-minded people where, it's just so easy. All you do is say, hello, where are you from? And then, the conversation goes all here. And, here I am having a drink with a Swede, and the next day going with a Serbian here, like just like those kinds of experiences I live for. And, it's easy for me to make friends and to talk and get along with people because that's just, that's my personality. But, I have met people with the flip side, abroad where, being maybe not like me, where it is even harder to meet friends because it is more that timid personality. And, everyone has their own personality kind of thing. So, but for me specifically, it's not a problem. And, the solo travel is, just so fun to me because it's like, who am I going to meet tonight? What am I going to do tomorrow? Yeah, try. That's my mentality.
Well, I know you mentioned one of the first places when you were in Spain, it was in the small little town. You weren't close to an airport. And, when Brittany and I talk sometimes, like if we were to move somewhere, like proximity to an airport is important. So I guess like while you're actually working and have your contracts, and now that you're in Istanbul, easy access to an airport, how often are you doing those travelings? Because I know you have a history too. I mean, you mentioned the hostels, but you have a history of doing a lot of solo backpacking and things of that nature. So are you able to do that?
Yeah. So in Galicia, in the small town in Spain, no, I went somewhere. I went to the Canary Islands on the Easter break, but it just didn't make sense to travel a place on the weekend because it's like this small bus that takes you to this town, a switch, and it's like, okay, well, I'm not traveling, but that's fine. I'll explore the local area. But in Barcelona, having been to Europe, that the flights are just so much cheaper than they are back home. So it's more, okay, and Barcelona flies so many places. So what was it? I'm going on Google Flights and okay, got $20. So what are we gonna do with $20? Oh, okay, I'm flying to Milan for 13 euros. So just, being open to that. So Barcelona, I did a lot of travel, and a big thing with me, I love sports, and I play lacrosse, and I found a team in Barcelona. So then went to a tournament in Prague, and then from there went to different countries. Again, solo kind of thing, and then just using, because Barcelona, I lived not too far from, anywhere in Barcelona. To get in the airport's not hard. So weekend trips were easy, and then even Barcelona with the buses, they go so many places. I was taking buses to the south of France like every other weekend at one point, and you know what? It is easy. But in Turkey, because of, say, the economy, the prices of flights are not as low as what they were, because Turkish Airlines flies everywhere, and Pegasus Airlines is their budget airline, and they fly a lot of places. But the prices, and sometimes with the times, we haven't been able to do as much travel abroad as I guess we would have thought. But for the breaks, we did go elsewhere in Europe. We went to Egypt for the one break. We just got back today from Napoli, Greece, and Budapest, so that was just a little time. But we've done a lot of traveling in Turkey that we've been here, because Turkey's a huge country, but in terms of flying, I mean, you get anywhere in the country within 2 hours. So we've done a lot of travel into, because I'm here with my girlfriend actually, so we've done a lot of travel within Turkey on the weekends. And again, there's two massive airports that not too far from us, so you are able to do the Friday to Sunday kind of trips. So and in Korea, was not able to do a ton of travel internationally. Actually, I didn't go anywhere internationally because at the time with COVID, so if you left Korea, you would have to quarantine for 2 weeks coming back, and I did the 2-week quarantine going to that country, and I will never do that again. But unable to travel in Korea, but more some weekend trips again in Korea. It's a smaller country, but definitely Barcelona was where I was able to do my most international travel because of, again, its proximity and the prices. But yeah, I try to do, at least one trip every month, in the places that I've been, if not more.
I'm really loving our conversation so far. I mean, you've done so much, and you've only been doing this for a few years, and I just can tell like you probably have so much more planned as well, which is really cool. But when you are done with like a teaching year, is that when you mostly do your longer backpacking trip?
Yeah. So, yes, to answer your question, after Barcelona, I did do, well, okay. So I was in the midst of a trip. I was trying to do a trip around the world, going west, or actually east from Barcelona, and then come back to Maryland kind of thing. And it was supposed to be a 5-month trip, and I made it 2.5 months in. And I made it to Thailand when COVID really hit the fan. So that was when I had to, cut my losses and okay, we got to go home. We don't know what's going on. But after Korea, yes, I did a month backpacking in Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan. So there was that, what you were saying. So the contract's over. Before we go home, figure out our next step, or even if I have my next step, let's make some moves. Being cooped up in Korea for a year was like, okay, where are we going? And that's what brought me to those 3 countries. And again, I'm very big into going to places off the beaten path. I prefer, Eastern Europe to Western. I think it's more, less tourists and more raw and gritty. So, the Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan was the perfect solo trip. But those 2 were all solo, and yeah, I had a ball.
I love places kind of off the beaten path too. So where would you say is like your favorite place in a country that is more unsuspecting, that most people are like, oh, I've never even heard of it, or I've never even thought of going?
Yeah. So me, I come from a small town. So telling like friends and stuff, like even countries that I think are well known, they have no idea what that is, kind of thing. So, but like my favorite, I guess, off the beaten path, would be this region, not to lump Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan together because they're so different. So each one has their own language, culture, whatever. But I think Georgia, I've only met a handful of people that have ever been to Georgia. In Azerbaijan, even less. I don't think I know like one of the person I've ever met has been Azerbaijan. But Georgia is just so beautiful, and tourists. There were tourists there, but it's not the droves of crowds that you'd see in a Paris or a Rome, and it's just, again, off the beaten path. And it's kind of hard to find information online about where to go, and especially in English. And I love that, where it's like, wow, I'm the only person I know that, okay, I knew someone else had been to Georgia, a roommate, but it's more like, wow, like I'm just doing something and I can tell the next person. It isn't like going to Spain where, okay, everyone's been to Sevilla, Granada, this and that. It's like okay, well, I'm going to somewhere where it's like kind of hard to find information. Like I feel like I'm pioneering it amongst my travel friends kind of thing. And yeah, so Georgia, I think would be my answer to your question.
I've heard really good things about Georgia. It's definitely on my list. I haven't been there before, but a lot of the times when you mention Georgia, people are like, oh, the state? And I'm like, no.
Atlanta, no.
Not the state. Well, I really want to dive into the backpacking portion. And you did a month-long backpacking trip. You kind of mentioned where you went, but how long were you there for?
So this trip to Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, it was a little over a week in each country. So I started in Georgia, and then I went to Armenia, which all three countries border each other. But for those of you who don't know, Armenia and Azerbaijan hate each other. They just had a war, 2 years ago? It's a very, very turbulent area. So I mean, I had known this, but my plan was to go Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, like cross from Armenia to Azerbaijan, but that border is blocked off. And so I had to go back to Georgia to go to Azerbaijan. So I guess Georgia would have been maybe 8 days versus the other ones would have been 7. Yeah, probably 7. But because I had to go back to Georgia to go to Azerbaijan. And that was, a month of just backpacking, bouncing between hostels and different cities within each country. And Georgia and Armenian, the language is unlike anything I've ever seen in terms of like the script. And Azerbaijan is kind of similar the language to Turkish, but yeah, just each one, it's just a part of the world that is just so different than everywhere else. I mean, it's like Europe but Asia, but Europe but still Asia, and like just it's at a crossroads between literally both continents come together. And Georgia would have been at probably 8 days, about 7 and 7, I think.
So interesting, because I haven't done a lot of backpacking, but it's something I would be interested in. We have stayed in a hostel, but it was only for a few days. What would you say 3 of your must-haves on a backpacking trip?
Okay, so 3 must-haves. Well, for one, I think having that charger I have a charger that has the different prongs to all the different parts of the world kind of thing. And 2, I think having a currency converter on your phone, because time in, time out again, I mess up on that every time. So I think that's a good one, an offline one. And then Maps.me is the map that I use, that it's, because I usually get SIM cards for every country I go to. But, God forbid I go somewhere and, when I landed in Georgia, I landed at 2 a.m. So it's like there were no stores open to get a SIM card. So Maps.me, you download the country or the region that you're going to on Wi-Fi, and then it's a great map that you can use, afterwards. Because, beforehand, I go places I can't get a SIM card or something. So I'm like, a chicken without a head. Those are the 3 big things I would say. Maybe that's travel in general, maybe not so much the backpacking. But yeah, and then a backpacking bag, I think, is good there. There's some really good, Osprey? That's the bag I have. So it's, built for backpacking that, it's not your typical backpack. It's got the root, all these different hidden pockets kind of thing. Because when you're backpacking, you're gonna travel with all different things, and I think these backpacks are built for that. And it's a good thing too. If you need to sleep somewhere, it might be comfortable as a pillow. It's nice and chunky. So I definitely recommend Osprey.
Do you find that you just shove everything in and kind of just layer it in as you need it? Or do you use some type of system like packing cubes to keep yourself organized within your bag?
So I've been rolling them up like hot dog style, all my clothes, because I think that's the best way from what I've seen to stack. And because it's a pain, when you're backpacking, because you're not necessarily taking all the clothes out. So you take one thing out, but then, okay, oh God, now I got to get something tomorrow at the bottom. So I probably should have a better organizational structure than what I actually do. But I find the best way to maximize the space is to like a hot dog style.
You have done a lot of trips like this before. What advice would you give to someone that's never been backpacking before, but really wants to take that kind of?
Yeah, I think just do it. Really, I think that's the big advice. You always have reservations to do anything, I think, in life. And I think backpacking is a way, again, I keep coming back to finding yourself, but it's something where, it's just you against the world kind of thing. And so just, don't, there will be people that say, don't do it. Oh, you're going to this place. Oh, aren't you scared? This will happen. But don't listen to that. Being back home, dangerous things could happen. Just go with it. I think backpacking, of course, I don't think there's an age maximum to go backpacking. No, but especially if you're younger and you have less responsibilities, do a backpacking trip, because, I think it's harder, depending where you are in your life or what job is that you have. But the backpacking is just a different way of travel. And, I think hostels come with the backpacking, but you can still if you need your alone time, you can, a hotel is always there. A private room is always there. Like, you have freedom, but it's just a way to, it's an alternative trip. It's not an all-inclusive. No, it's an adventure. It's a big world out there, and just put all your stuff in your bag and go see it. And I think don't get too caught up with the horror stories that come with travel for one, or backpacking, or I don't know. I think just do it, because there will be a million reasons to not do something always.
You hit the nail on the head. I mean, we tell our listeners that all the time, dude. Like, don't fall for the preconceived notions of like danger. Yes, some countries and places and anywhere, yes, there's danger, but doesn't mean that it's not worth going to and being vigilant about what it is that you're actually doing, right? So I really respect that thought process and mentality, because a lot of people don't have it, and it keeps that, hindrance there for them to be able to go. But you talked about just going, which I totally agree with. But when you're doing your trips, okay, you picked your countries. Do you have a rough outline of a plan, or when you're there, are you kind of like really winging?
I don't really do any planning, really. I do the essential. Do I need a visa? Yeah, that's about it. Because I'm the kind of person that every single day is where I'll find out where I'm going to be staying that night. Because I've had, experiences where I maybe book a place for 4 days. Well, what if I don't like that city? What if there's not enough to do for the 4 days? What if I don't like the people at the hostel? Like, I do one day at a time, which can be hit or miss, because, I wake up, okay, now it's the whole back to what am I doing today kind of thing. But I like that. And my mom was the big advocate for not planning too much, because before I went on my solo backpacking trip as a junior in college, I thought I was going to plan everything out for 2 weeks. And she said, because she's done her fair share of backpacking, having lived abroad, you never know who you will meet. You never know what will happen. So I think keep your plan, loose and flexible, because again, stuff happens, or you don't like a certain place, and or you do give into a preconceived notion. You I don't know, just keep things open. So no, to answer your question, I don't. But which has bit me a few times, like especially going to Georgia. I show up, I don't even know where I'm staying, and I get there at 2 a.m, which is stupid. Well, I don't look up how the best way to get to the city is, which I would have looked up, which in Georgia, a big issue is they have like a taxi mafia. Well, if I did a simple Google search, I would have known that, where I got, scammed, and I was short some money because I didn't do that. So there is pros and cons to my travel ways, but I think, again, I will never plan. I won't. I think it's just what I need to do is look up certain aspects of going to certain places. Even this trip with my girlfriend, we took a bus from Istanbul to Thessaloniki in Greece, and every single day it was like, okay, where are we going to stay kind of thing, which it was good and bad, because like I didn't want to go. We go to this place. What if we don't like it? What if it's not whatever? So like, let's not be locked in for 2 days, which we did do. We did somewhere for 2 days. This place was like it was like heinous, like the conditions of this booking. So we backed out. We were able to get our money back, but I don't know. I mean, that could happen with anywhere, because we booked 2 days. It doesn't. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I do keep a loose plan, because again, I've made some great memories and kept it flexible with people that I met in the hostel. Like I did a kayaking trip in Croatia and met these 2 guys. Again, I didn't have any plans onward, and they said, "Oh, we have a car. We're going to drive to Bosnia tomorrow. Do you want to come?" And I said, "Okay, yeah, sure, whatever." So then here I am going to Bosnia, which wouldn't have happened if my plan was more rigid. Like, no, I'm not going to Bosnia because I'm doing this. It's because I like that. As I said, just met so many people that have invited me to do things, or I invite them to do things based on the vibes, and just memories that are really created because it's going in with an open, non-planned mindset.
Yeah, it's so intriguing to me, because that is totally not my travel style, but I can see like the excitement behind it, which is really cool. And by the way, shout out to your mom, because your mom sounds amazing.
Shout out Monica.
But back to a first-time traveler, if they were doing a backpacking trip for the first time, what would you say is the good length of time for them to do as like their first backpacking trip? 1 week, 2 weeks, a month?
More. Well, I think do a year or something, but no, I think a realistic thing, I think 2 weeks, because a week is like, to me, like you're going to a country. I mean, anyways, you're a tourist, you go for a week, but 2 weeks, I think, is a good time for you to really feel, do you like this? Do you like this whole moving between places or doing what it is they do for 2 weeks? Like 1 week, I think, to me is too short. I think 2 weeks, especially if you go to a country, you can see a bit in 2 weeks, depending on where you go. And I think the more time that you are out of your comfort zone, the more time that, you can become acclimated, or really, this is not for me. Because even if you hate it for 2 days, okay, then I think you need to figure out how can you change, how can you dictate the direction of this trip kind of thing. I think 2 weeks is maybe a week and a half, we'll say, could be the minimum. But I think a week is too short. And yeah, you will find what it is that you like about travel if you're just by yourself doing this backpacking thing. You're not going with friends, or you're not going with your parents where everything is outlined. I think it's a good way and a good length to really throw yourself to the fire.
And do you budget while you backpack, or do you have like a certain cost per day or amount that you want to spend on a trip, or how do you figure that out?
So in my backpacking trips, the solo ones, not necessarily a cost per day, but I'm a frugal person anyways, where I usually only do 2 meals a day. I don't really eat breakfast anyways, but I try not to fall victim to the big tourist traps kind of thing. And, because I try to save money that way. And hostels, I will usually pick one of the cheaper ones. Again, if the reviews are, 3 out of 10, I'm not going to do it. But, I do keep, depending on where you are in the world, like, if you can get away with less than $20 for an accommodation, then yeah, I'm going to do that. But then, and then looking at, I don't take taxis because scams, or just, just little things like that. And I walk everywhere. Even I'm also not like directionally challenged. So like instead of getting onto a bus in a new country or a metro, I'm just going to walk, and I'll walk up to an hour and a half, because one, saves money, but maybe it doesn't save much. But two, like, I don't know if it's me, it's a way to see more, but not necessarily a number. Like even on the 5-month trip, it was just more a mental note. Like, okay, if I spend this $15 on this dinner, I'll probably hate myself for it. You know what I mean? So like really keeping costs low. But I'm a big 2 meal per day, and going to markets, getting instead of going to restaurants, going to markets, getting stuff like that. I know people, which I've never done, will cook in the house. I've never done that. I can't see myself doing that. I feel like someone would critique my cooking or something. But yeah, so definitely 2 meals a day. And just in museums, like I don't appreciate them as much. Like I'll do history museums, but art museums, I won't do that. So unless, the big ones in Madrid, I forget the name, but I did that kind of thing. But yeah, so it's not a number. It's more just, okay, what's the most frugal way of doing something?
Well, you've given us a lot of info on backpacking and teaching abroad, and it's been a really great conversation. So we are going to start wrapping it up, but I do have a few final questions. You mentioned that your girlfriend is there with you. Does she also teach abroad?
Yes. So we met in Korea. She had DM'd me actually on a job, not job board, our TEFL Academy. I posted like, okay, I'm here in Korea. And so she was looking at jobs and I guess fancied me, I guess. And yeah, my DMs, she's in the other room. She probably hates me for saying that. But yeah, so she arrived in Korea 6 months after me, because that's when her contract started. So then we took this show on the road. We came to Turkey together. So we were at the same school. There were 2 different campuses, but it did kind of merge. So we do the same thing. She was just with a different age group. And then moving forward, we'll go together wherever.
Oh, I love it. That's great. It's great that you have someone there with you too, because I feel like one of the challenges of living abroad is feeling like you're missing or not maintaining the relationships that you have in the States, and kind of missing out on milestones at home. Do you have any feelings about that, or any thoughts on that?
That's a good topic. I should have mentioned this before when you talk about challenges. Yes, it's a huge thing, because, just especially my age now, people getting married, having children, like, I don't know, just it is like unrealistic to go like someone's birthday or something like that, where you are just so far away that you can't go there for the weekend. But this could be said, being in the US, depending on where you are. But I don't know, it is something where I do come back and I do feel FOMO at times, where it's like, oh my God, well, I missed out on this, which, all the friends, they understand what it is that had happened, where it's me, like I'm not doing my own thing. But then the flip side is I wouldn't trade it. I'd rather have these experiences. Like I haven't, not going wood, haven't missed any really big events. Just my cousin's graduation, the other week, but it is tough. And, I just, I've been invited to two weddings, and it's like, well, where in the world will I be? Will I be able to swing it? And Yeah. So as a general thing, yeah, it can be tough missing these milestones, and FOMO is real. But I look past it as in, well, I'm out here making moves wherever I am. Like, okay.
Well, I really think you have a lot of valuable insight just in general that you've shared with us here in terms of, a way to travel, make money, and work at the same time, and then utilizing your off time to do other things. But I know you have something in store for yourself that you are launching. So why don't you tell our listeners where they can find your social stuff as well as, your big announcement to share right here.
Yes. So on Instagram, I have 2 accounts so that you can find me. I have just my personal one, Matt Mitzel, my name. And then my mantra is Makin Moves. So on my travel account, Makin Moves with Matt. So there I post my travel related things. I have a drone that I'm obsessed with. So I just, post all my videos and pictures there. And an announcement, as you said, I have now started a podcast. I've been featured on several podcasts. I'm always looking to be on podcasts because I'm a talker. So I figured, well, let's host a podcast. This is your calling. So yes, I have Makin Moves with Matt, the travel podcast, and episodes will be on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And this is a podcast that, again, kind of like what it is now, just talking about trends in travel, anything travel. And I want to, as I move forward with it, I would like to talk country specific. So, okay, has anyone been to Albania? What do we do in Albania for, an itinerary? So, yeah, thank you for, let's get that out there. But yeah, Makin Moves with Matt. And that's the big Instagram. That's my podcast.
Is there anything else that you want to share with our listeners?
Yeah, man, just touched on it a little, but I think just travel, and just go to places that aren't the Romes, the Parises. Like, just if you have any inkling to go somewhere, any drive to see what it is that you see, just do it. I think traveling is such a rewarding experience for everyone. You're an ambassador for your own country. You are, can see the world for what it is, and it's a huge world out there. And we'll never see the whole thing, but I think just see as much as you can when you can. And I think in my travels I've seen we are so different, but we're all the same. And I love seeing that, and I would love other people who are listening to if you have any reservations, just put those reservations aside and go see the world. Just do it. Big world.
It's great advice.
Well, I definitely love that. You've left our listeners with some solid advice. And even though I take that advice and try to live by that mantra, I'm going to apply it to myself more further now. And we really appreciate your time today, the conversation. I think it was invaluable, and we really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. It's great to get to know you guys and, talk. And yeah, I had a blast.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Squatties, for tuning into our episode this week. I hope Matt inspired you to start traveling and teaching abroad yourself. Keep the adventures going with us by following us on all social media at Travel Squad Podcast, and send us in your questions of the week.
If you found the information in this episode to be useful, or if you thought we were just plain funny, please be sure to share it with a friend that would enjoy it too. Please subscribe, rate and review our podcast, and tune in every Travel Tuesday for new episodes.
Stay tuned for next week's episode. We have some more amazing adventures and tips in store for you. Bye, Squatties!